put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
That's right, Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the internet. Hey, how are ya? Welcome to it. Good morning, Alaskans. It's Friday. Stand by for news. That's a throwback right there. Some of you will get that, some of you will not. But that's I always remember hearing that and just smiling. That was the note of my week, to know that's the time to get things going. All right. So we're ready to go. So today is the day, one day a week, that we kind of dedicate to the Second Amendment and to gun rights and to the gun culture and everything else. Probably to the complete opposition of all the platforms that we're on right now, except for radio. Radio, again, still waving that flag of freedom in the First Amendment vein of things, allowing people to say what they feel and think, and without major fear of retribution. Meanwhile, every other platform out there, always open to interpreting and silencing you or fining you or penalizing you or punishing you in some way, shape, or form for doing so. We're going to talk a little bit about that today as part of our discussion on the conversation in the public square. So that's part of our discussion today. We've got some headlines from around the country, Second Amendment related headlines. And we're going to talk about what's happening across the country. We're also going to dive into an interesting development from the Frontsite, I guess, the Frontsite Firearm Training Institute, which everybody just knows is as Frontsite. Oh, we got a problem here. Let me fix something here. We got a little bit of a radio challenge here. Let me fix this so we can make sure that everybody loves me all the time. There we go. Good morning. Hello to all you folks out there in Radio Land, including in Fairbanks. There was something got disconnected. So now we're all connected and everything's good to go. Thank you for Edwin for giving me the heads up on that. All right, so here we are with Friday, and the one day a week we dedicate to firearms, the Second Amendment, and all the gun goodness that we can stand. So we're ready to jump into it and talk about it. No guest today, but we are going to be all part of the gun Q&A. We're all going to sit down and enjoy a little conversation with ourselves. I always like to open up the phone lines on Friday and answer questions to the best of my ability, because I think one of the things that we fight against in this country when it comes to guns and the Second Amendment is there's a lot of there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of hysteria, and there is a lot of misinformation that goes on out there. And I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that, well, I mean, it's the old axiom that ignorance breeds fear, right? If you don't know about something, if you're just ignorant about the potential, the possibilities, what something can do, what the true answers are to something, then you are afraid of it. The example that I like to use is the idea of handing somebody who's never in their life handled one before, handing them a running chainsaw and saying, go buck up that pile of wood there. Go cut that up into lengths. Now, a chainsaw is a dangerous tool. There's no two ways about it. But what you should be is, instead of being fearful of the tool, you should instead be respectful of it, understanding what the dangers are, understanding that it is a tool like any other, and that it can do good or it can create serious mayhem. But if I gave you a training course on a chainsaw and spent 20, 30 minutes, an hour with you on how to use it, on how to wield it, on the dangers, the cutting one way but not the other, of wearing the proper safety gear, of always paying attention to what's going on and what the pitfalls may be of using it, and then I gave the chainsaw to you to go cut up all that wood, you would probably be pretty confident, right? I mean, you would probably be, you would respect it, and you'd probably be a little leery at first. But give you an hour or two with that chainsaw cutting up wood, by the end of that afternoon, you'd probably feel like you had some expertise in that. I mean, you're not a professional tree cutter, but you feel like you could probably do that again without much trouble. See, we have demystified the chainsaw. We've taken the unknown and the ignorance factor out. And, you feel pretty good about it. And that's what we're trying to do with a firearm, because a firearm is the same thing. Firearm is a tool. Now, the important difference is that it is the constitutionally protected tool, right? We have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms, both for the enjoyment of it and for personal protection. Against enemies, foreign and domestic, footpads, our own families, all that stuff. And so that's really the point of Firearms Friday. The point is, we need to try and take away the mystique of the firearm. And there is a ton of mystique, and a lot of it is, the irony of this whole thing is, a lot of this is being ginned up by our entertainment industry, not in some kind of Machiavellian way. It's just we've always been fascinated with the ideas of people, being able to protect themselves, or stories of people fighting off the bad guy or whatever. I mean, right back to the silent movies and cowboys and everything else. This is just something that we are used to. But the irony of the modern day entertainment industry is that, on the one hand, they chastise us for wanting to be able to utilize and defend ourselves and have our Second Amendment right. And then at the same time, they glorify it and they glamorize it in their own movies. One of the biggest ones that comes to mind is the irony of somebody like Liam Neeson, who's not even an American citizen, by the way. I should point that out. Liam Neeson, who an Irish citizen who became one of the big action movie leading men with his movies like Taken and several others, would come up and sit in front of a microphone at some press conference or in some interview and tell all of us Americans how we're so bad and so wrong for wanting to have access to firearms and defending ourselves and, trying to shame us in this, while at the same time producing a movie like Taken where he goes as a vigilante and, kills 87 people or something in the movie to protect his daughter. Now, I mean, again, no judgment here. If they had my daughter, I'd probably do the same thing. But the idea that here he is making money, glorifying this in Hollywood, glamorizing it and making a story out of it and really trivializing the actions of his main character, by the way, because this guy's he's breaking the law. I mean, first of all, there's a law against killing people. Second of all, it's in Europe, so he's busting so many different laws through so many different countries and everything. But at the same time, chastising us for wanting to lawfully exercise our own rights that here in America we are allowed by law to do. The irony is not lost on me. But I mean, that's just a microcosm of what we're fighting back against. You've also got all the talking heads that are on the news media. You guys may cling to one network or another as, oh, this is the only one that tells the truth. And I love this because this was, it was so apparent to me, back in, what year was it? Sutherland, spring, shooting. That was in November of 2017. So that's almost 6 years ago, or 5 years ago. Because we kept hearing about, of course CNN's not going to tell the truth. Of course, MSNBC is not going to tell the truth. And we knew, but Fox News, they will tell the truth. They will be fearless, and they will. And yet, during the Sutherland Spring shooting, we saw a prime example of what happens with mainstream media when they talk about things that they have absolutely no idea about. I remember watching the report as things were happening, and they had one of their people come in that was commentating. And Greg Jarrett, who was normally a reporter and a commentator, and I don't know why they brought him in as some kind of expert, but he starts going on and on about how, with an AR-15, you can just, push a button and turn it into a full auto rifle. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said, which is so absolutely 100% incorrect. Besides the fact that neither one of either the shooter nor the citizen who saved him, saved the people there, were using fully automatic rifles. Stephen Williford was the parishioner who came upon the incident of the shooting and was able to return fire and fatally injured the shooter, who then drove off and died of his blood loss and crashed his car down the road. But that didn't matter. That didn't matter to Greg Jarrett or many of the other talking heads out there. So it doesn't matter what news media outlet you've got going on there. You got a lot of people who are espousing things about which they know nothing. That to me was just like it was like the flashbulb moment in my eyes that it seemed like nobody is really getting this. That there's so much misinformation about what's going on out there and how these things work and how, what the true laws are about the firearms and everything else. And yet they're paying these people to tell you about it. And for the most part, people who don't know are just lapping it up that, that must be right. If I buy an AR-15 and I can just push this little button and the next thing you know, it's a full auto machine gun. That's not how it works. It is not the truth. But people take it as gospel. And that is the exact thing that we're trying to avoid, that we're trying to change. And we see instances like that to this day of what's going on. There's a story coming out of New York New York City, where there was a high-capacity ammunition magazine that was used that falls exactly into this category. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But it's a prime example of why we bring Firearms Fridays to the forefront for these discussions. We'll also talk about the way that media and social media and everything else deal with these issues as well. There's several interesting things that I want to talk about. So we're going to jump into this and talk about it. We'll do that right now, but we got to take a break first. So it's Friday. I'm ready. You ready? All right. Well, we're going to jump back into it in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Don't forget you can check us out. We're back on Facebook this morning. So I don't know what was going on, but we're back on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. If you want to join us in the chat rooms, we've got the podcast will be up and available later this morning, so you can listen to us that way. We've got the audio-only live stream out on the website, but the best way to listen to us is right here on this, your favorite radio station and/or translator. We'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. It's Friday.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Oh, okay. What is going on here? All right. Going back through some of the comments. Thank you, by the way, again, to, was it Edwin, the gentleman that reminded me that the KFAR, I had connected and then I disconnected something this morning because I was working on something else and I forgot to reconnect. That was me. That was all me. 100% me. I will take my full whipping over that one. That was me. Willie says, couldn't find you yesterday. Coffee wasn't the same. Yeah, sorry, Willie. Facebook would not cooperate yesterday. But don't forget, you can always go over to my website at michaeldukeshow.com and you can stream it from there with the TuneIn Radio app if you're using your phone, or you can find us on YouTube. Everybody switched over to YouTube yesterday, which I'm on right now as well. I'm always simulcasting on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch TV, so feel free to go do that. Brian says, orange Mini Cooper with a rebel flag on the roof spotted tearing it up the valley. Uncle Jesse's long-lost nephew? I don't know. That's not me, but I'm in the all-subdued gray man. That's what I'm in. I'm in the gunmetal gray Mini Cooper. That's me. And I'm not really tearing it up anywhere because it's been a little icy and nasty out there. You don't see me tearing it up anywhere. So not me, Brian. Not me. Mayor Charlie Pierce, good morning, Alaska. Go shovel some snow. Oof, I know. That's why I have kids, Charlie. Go shovel that driveway. Let me know when it's done. Oh, Greg said he sent me an email about Frontsite. So wait a second. I got to star this one to make sure that I can come back to it. And then you sent me another email. Is this the same email you sent me? Oh, here's an important update. Potential legal action against Piazza for canceling lifetime memberships. My God, this guy is verbose, isn't he? You're not a Gold Star member, blah, 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 blah. Greg, I may have you call in on this because although I'm a lifetime member of Frontsite, I have really only ever used it a couple times and not in the last 6 or 7 years. So maybe, Greg, you may want to call in when I dive into this segment and give me your thoughts, because I know you've had a lot more interactions with it. And you've done a lot more stuff with it. But I've got an article, so we'll get it done. Egad, that's a lot of pressure, Michael. Forgot to connect the thing. I forgot to connect one thing. Well, I actually connected it, and then I disconnected it because I was doing something else, and I was like, it happens sometimes, man. It's Friday. It's radio. Nobody's going to die. The only thing that I'll get is that I'll get an eyebrow raise from the engineer who got the text message because KFAR went off the air for 3 minutes. He'll look at me and go, "You woke me up." And I'll be like, "I am such a jerk. I'm sorry." That's what's going to happen. All right. That's what they do about everything, says Michael on Facebook. They lie, 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 and lie again. That's what they do. Well, and I don't think a lot of times it's intentional. I think they're just, they're exhorting, they're espousing their opinion as if it's fact. That's just the way it is. They're espousing their opinion as if it is 100% complete and total fact. So, anyway. Okay. Wow, your thought process is a little crazy. What are we talking about here? Is this the Palin thing? For what is that, Barbara? I mean, I don't know. If I had tested positive for COVID, I probably would not be out and about doing things just for other people's peace of mind. But hey, it's me. It's me. I probably wouldn't do that. All right, we're 15 seconds out, 10 seconds out. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking. Let's do it. All right, so we were just talking about, a lot of the misinformation, the ideation of things that people just, talking about things that they know nothing about, while at the same time pretending to be an expert in it. And I was just talking about, because somebody on YouTube just said, well, that's what they do. They lie about everything. They lie. They do. And, I think sometimes maybe it's intentional, maybe. But I think a lot of times what you have people doing is that they are espousing, they're espousing their opinion as if it is fact. And I mean, I will try and be very clear on this program. If something is a fact, I will, usually mention where I pulled it from or what's going on. If something's an opinion, I try and make a clear delineation of what my opinion is of things, of what is a fact and what my opinion of that fact is, or what my sincerely held beliefs are. But there is a fine line on that. There is absolutely a fine line on that. But, what we see a lot of times is people who are, supposed experts or are just being really alarmists about anything else. For example, in New York City, there was a killing of a rookie New York City police officer, and he and his partner, one cop was killed and the other was injured. Now, normally, the kinds of magazines that a criminal uses usually doesn't have any impact on his actions. We hear a lot of things about high-capacity magazines and how they're wrong and how they're bad, and yet the vast majority of shooters in a lot of these high-profile shootings over the last 15 or 20 years, the vast majority of them have done them with standard capacity magazines. In some cases, 10-round magazines, reduced capacity magazines. And yet they still continue to go out and somehow they continue to try and conflate a lot of the different things with this and say somehow this makes them more deadly and everything else. And this is the case in what happened here in New York City. The high-capacity ammunition magazine a crazed gunman used to kill a rookie NYPD cop and injure another in Harlem turns the weapon into something that might be in war-torn Afghanistan, experts said on Saturday. The so-called drum magazine allows the Glock pistol to hold an additional 40 rounds to the firearm's usual 10. Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but the average Glock actually holds 15 rounds. You're already starting on the low side because you're using the reduced capacity magazines, not the standard ones that they come with. But I'll give that to you. New York prohibits the use of magazines holding more than 10 rounds unless you're an active duty law enforcement or military, because, trust me, they're the only ones that should be trusted with this kind of firepower. Unless, of course, you want to defund them, in which case... but I digress. You can now load up with this pistol. Anyway, the ex-New York City cop and private eye Bo Dietl likened the ammo magazine to something our troops saw in Afghanistan. Now, I gotta say this for reals. I've watched Bo Dietl talk about things on TV and news, and when he's talking about crime, for the most part, he's a very interesting guest, and he's got a lot of I think, good ideas, and he's got a lot of good perspective. But when it comes to guns, Bo Dietl is no expert. He likened the ammo magazine, this drum magazine, to something our troops saw in Afghanistan. But of course, I will tell you right now that there is no military on the planet that issues a drum magazine for a Glock pistol, okay? That is more of a novelty item than anything else, because it's not something that the average. But see, this is how they do it. They liken it to how somehow it's a weapon. This is what's the new phrase that Biden and company like? Oh, weapons of war on our street. Like somehow this is something that the average Joe goes into combat wielding this. I mean, first of all, having a pistol with 40 rounds sticking out of it, I don't even know what this magazine looks like, quite honestly. But if it's a drum magazine, I can guarantee you that I just popped a picture of it to take a look at it. If it's a drum magazine, oh, yeah. Boy, that wouldn't make that pistol unwieldy at all. But they're just not issuing this to the troops, around the world. But you got experts like Dietl telling the media that this is something that's in the thing. You wonder why some of these reporters sound like complete idiots when they talk about firearms, because they bring up experts like Bo Dietl. Can you imagine trying to shoot that thing with? Look, I've got a couple extended rounds. I've got a couple 30-round magazines for one of my Glocks because I have a carbine kit that turns the Glock into a rifle, right? A 16-inch full-length rifle. For like a survival bag or something. So I've got a couple 32-round magazines. That's not something you want to haul around all day, because I have shot it with a 32-round magazine. Trust me. I mean, the damn thing sticks 8 inches out the bottom of the only way you really want to shoot it is as a carbine. It makes no sense to do that. But okay, don't worry about that. Because the expert says this is a weapon of war. Now, first of all, I'd like to point out that, one, it's already illegal to own a magazine in the New York City that has more than 10 rounds. So they've already broken that law. It's illegal to kill police officers, believe it or not, in New York City. It's also against the law. But here they are going on and on about how, well, these weapons of war, which are not weapons of war, this specific thing is not a weapon of war. Oh, we need to take that. They're trying to find things that aren't really there, right? They're trying to fight these things and say, by the way, if you wanted to go into the whole idea of, none of these weapons of war, do you realize that most firearms today, probably, in the 70 percentile range, maybe more, have their roots or have been used by a military of one form or another throughout history, right? we shouldn't have these military weapons of war on the street. Well, that Colt 1911 was issued in the millions, starting in whatever it was, 1913, all the way up through the end of World War II and Vietnam and everything else. Millions of 1911 Colt 1911s out there. Your Remington 700 hunting rifle that you use to take your deer or your moose or whatever, that's being deployed still to this day as a Mark 24 sniper rifle. That's a weapon of war. I mean, we can just go down the line of all these guns that have been used time and time and time again, and there's crossover, sure. But that doesn't make them any more, any different than anything else. And when they're in common use, like these semi-automatic sporting rifles, where they are semi-automatic, not full automatic, like you'd find in the military, and there's millions of them in use, it pretty much makes all their arguments and their points moot to that point, doesn't it? But this is what they do. They bring some expert up, or their own talking heads like Greg Jarrett on Fox News get up and say something absolutely stupid. I mean, not just wrong, but blatantly on its face inaccurate and incorrect. And people take it as gospel. That's the problem. We're trying to demystify. We're trying to give them that 1 hour session with the chainsaw so that they know that they have some knowledge and they're not going to hurt themselves or others. But people have got to be willing to learn, I guess, at that point. All right. Let's go over to the phones and see what's happening here. We'll take some calls. We're going to open up the phone lines for gun Q&A. So that means that we'll answer questions about guns, firearms, practical stuff, tips, laws, whatever we can do. If I don't have the answer, and I mean, I've got a lot of answers, and my Google foo is pretty strong, but I got a lot of listeners out there who are even smarter than me. So let's jump into it. Here we go. 433-3150, the Pivotel call-in line, powered by our friends over there at Satellite West. If you'd like to get in the queue, let's get it done. Over here, good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Mike. Jeff from Homer.
Hello, Jeff.
You talk about the way they puff everything up, and that's very true. I agree with you. And, when they talk about the average person with a gun, I've been a guide out of Maine for 38 years, and I've been here for, a dozen or so, 14. And, I used to get people all the time, especially as I went along, and they'd say, well, I've been coming here for 30 years, and they basically hunted 30 weeks a year out of their whole life, right? So I'd look at them and say, well, I get way more than that. I carry my gun pretty much all year, and I carry more in my pickup than I see them on TV. They'll bring it up, and I found naked in his house with 3 guns and 250 rounds of ammo. And I go, geez, I got 6 guns because I got spares for everybody, and I probably got way more ammo than that in the truck.
I love it when they when they say, here's the ATF raid of the house, and they bring out his arsenal, and it's a 22 it's a 22 long rifle, a hunting rifle, and an AR-15 and a revolver, and they lay it on the hood, and they go, his arsenal, and I'm like, oh man, that's like what I have.
I got 2 in the truck.
I was just going to say, I have that much in my car. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so, to try to, for these idiots, to try to compare the average guy to a military, number one, military is highly trained. I guided special forces used to come right off the planes with their guns. They'd travel anywhere they wanted, and they were out of brag, and they just deer hunted with their rifles that they used. They had to be at the ready all the time, I guess, and they were a fun group to be with, believe me. They could shoot. You never worry about them, and they had GPS way back, and they'd come out of the woods, and you just didn't worry about them. But there's a difference between a professional or an expert, and like I said, these people. Well, I've been doing it for 30 years. Yeah, 1 week a year, 5 days. You had travel, so you haven't got a lot of time there. Not as much as some people would have in a whole year of guiding and being, responsible for people in the woods. And there is a big difference between a professional and a non-professional. And these fellows,
sure.
Where is your background, as I always say? mine is in guiding. I have 38 years steady in me, not so much since I've been here, but I hunt here, and you don't have to be an expert. Everybody thinks you're going to be an expert on all guns. You don't have to be. You only need 3 guns, a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun to get by. And I had more than that because, like I said, I needed 2 guns for myself if my 30-30 broke and I had to take it to the shop for, down to my gun guy, and for a week usually, and I had another one just like it, set up the same and a side mount scope on it, the whole works. So these so-called experts and people that shoot, I disagree with them, saying, well, they got a magazine with all these bullets, 10-1, they don't hit nothing with it. You hear it all the time. They hit maybe one person out of all those shots. A guy with his own gun, just a simple 30-30, it holds 6-7 rounds. Mine held 8 because the springs were weak on the old one, and you could. But you couldn't hunt with more than 7 in Maine. You could do more damage with that gun. All right.
Sure.
You kill 7 people and reload it as you go. I used most of the deer I ever killed, I killed 1 shot.
Right.
I like chasing them.
Right.
And so once you get good with that, most of those people aren't the ones that flip out anyways.
Right.
People grab these guns and they go do this stuff, and a lot of the guns are taken out of an area that nobody knew they took them, or nobody knew they had it, because the guy was crazy.
Jeff, the whole point is that the vast majority of these shootings, with a very rare exception, they all happen with standard the Virginia Tech shooter. I mean, he had 10-round magazines. He had several of them. He had purchased the gun and he had several of them. It doesn't make it any more deadly, doesn't make it any more to basically penalize the entire nation for the actions of a very, very small fraction of a percentile of people. Again, makes no sense. And that's my whole point. Jeff, hold the line here. I'm sorry. I'm up against the break. I got to run here. We're going to be back with more in just a second. The Michael Duke Show continues. It's Friday, Firearms Friday. In fact, the Pivotel call-in line is open. If you want to sound off, we'd love to hear what you have to say. 433-3150. 433-3150. Back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
I think Sean makes a valid point in the chat room, too, this morning, where he says the military nearly always uses semi-auto when shooting rifles anyway, way more effective in most situations. And it reminds me of a story of some troops, and I believe it was in Africa, and I may have been Angola. I can't remember where, but they were talking about how they were having a problem as they were fighting off rebels or whatever it was, the military was, in continuing their supply line, the ammunition supply. And some probably a non-com or something somewhere basically fixed the problem by instructing the armorers to basically create a weld bump so that they were using FNFALs at the time, basically putting a weld bump down to where the selector switch couldn't be put into full auto, so that the troops were required to only fire in semi-automatic mode. And not only did the ammo use go way down, their enemy casualty rate went way up, because you just don't spray and pray, That's the thing there. So again, there's nothing, unless you're doing it for suppressing fire or you're attacking a whole line of troops at once. They're just, again, the whole machine gun argument really doesn't really matter at that point. Semi-auto is semi-auto. But anyway, that's where I'm at over here. Okay. Let's see. what topic do I want to hit on next? Suppressing fire at CQB, right. All right, we've done that one. We're going to talk about, we'll talk about this, the attorney generals from across the country, including the state of Alaska, asking the Supreme Court to revisit the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal ruling in 2017 for gun bans. We'll talk about that. Did you want to see a picture of this thing? Let me see if I can show you a picture of this thing. Let's see what we got. There we go. Take a look at this thing. This thing is insane. This is this is the drum magazine we were talking about, and it's a 50-round magazine. It's not a 40-round magazine. It's a 50-round magazine. Take a look at this thing. You want to have that sticking out of the bottom of your Glock? 50 rounds? Oof. It is heavy, 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 heavy. That's not something that I would want to be running around and definitely not concealable. Let's put it that way. Definitely not a concealable firearm for sure. Okay. What else we got going on here? War in the Ukraine. War is imminent and inevitable. The Rand Corporation demonstrated the same thing in a report following Vietnam, said Brian. Oh, talking about moving to semi-auto. Right, exactly. I don't have the grip for that, Mag, and my trigger control would be a hot mess. I mean, it's heavy. I mean, hold the weight of the pistol at 50 rounds out in front of you for any extended period of time. I mean, again, it's just for, to me, that would just be another one of those range toys, gimmicky range toys, like a bump stock. I mean, a bump stock is just a gimmicky range toy. That's really what it's for, or was for before they outlawed them all. But it's just not something I would ever own. I mean, they're fun to shoot every now and then, but it's not something I'm going to drop $300 on or whatever it was to make it happen. It just doesn't make any sense. You can be a lot more. You could be a lot more effective with your single shot standard magazine pistol. I think you should file for Senate and take on David Wilson, says Harold, and I'm being 100% serious here. Well, first of all, I'm not a masochist, because that would be masochistic, and that's just not something that I'm interested in, Harold. I feel like I can do more good on this show in a single month than I could do in probably a whole 2-year session as a legislator. Besides the fact, you know me, I don't play well with others. It would just not be, not be happy about that. All right. 2 lines on hold. Jeff is still there. Jeff, I'm sorry. I thought you hung up. Jeff.
No, you said hold the line.
Yeah, that was.
I'm just listening.
I apologize. I'm about 25 seconds out. Real quick, Jeff. Anything else you'd like to mention before I let you go? Quickly.
Oh, just I did some checking on that thing in Maine, and that's all due to the groundwater going to hell on us.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, too much spraying.
We can talk about that here on a subsequent show. Thank you for your call. I apologize, Jeff. I saw the thing say it hung up. I thought you were gone. Appreciate it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. All right, welcome back to the program. We're continuing now. It's Firearms Friday. And, I want to talk about some stuff on that. But first, we got the gun Q&A going on, which is open line, open forum, talking about firearms, answering questions. There's no such thing as a dumb gun question. We got another line on hold. They've been on hold through the break there, so we want to say thank you to them for that. Let's go over to the phones and see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. My name is Kim, and I'm calling from Fairbanks.
Good morning, Kim. What's on your mind?
This is my first time. Well, it's the first time listening to your show, and I really appreciate it. I'll have to tell you, I'm pretty ignorant about firearms and, more motivated to learn, especially since my husband is pretty much the one that knows quite a bit about them. And I hope my question isn't too far off topic.
Oh, no, go ahead. Anything is good.
Well, it's not specific to firearms as much as I have been trying to find some information in regards to, the more of the dark video games and things like that start this process going in the first place, because I think that's where we need to be focusing as far as cutting down crime, more what's really going on with these people than the weapon of choice.
So you're thinking...
And I was wondering...
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Well, I'm just looking for resources on that to, just kind of have it on my heart to start getting more educated about that sort of thing and, see how it might be able to benefit the community in that way.
Right. Well, look, there's no direct correlation, and there's been studies and everything else. There's no direct correlation between the violence of video games and the real world violence that you see in this day and age. There've been studies, they've talked about it, but you'll have to remember that a lot of us grew up playing cowboys and Indians in the woods and doing this violent stuff. I mean, I've played all the when I was younger, I played all the shoot 'em up games and everything else. This has a lot more to do with the overall mental health. And it has to do with, with parental conformity, with how a lot of these people or kids were raised. And mental health probably factors into many of these issues. I mean, we can name, a dozen shootings that you may remember that took place that the shooters were either on psychotropics or they had serious mental health issues. And that really becomes the bigger component to this, I think, more than anything else. Whether it's the Virginia Tech shooting or the Naval Yard shooting or the Sutherland Springs shooting, that guy had gotten a dishonorable discharge for issues related to that, and that wasn't reported. I mean, I think to blame video games is what people see as an easy out. But the difference is what you have a problem with people who can't separate fantasy from reality, right? If you have to eliminate, video games that are, say, first-person shooter video games, you have to eliminate any movie or any television show or anything that has to do with any kind of violence at that point. And that goes, again, I think, back to the mental health aspect of people being able to separate fantasy from reality. And I think that's really where it starts, in my opinion, is working on the mental health of people who have those kind of problems, and also working on, this kind of familial unit and the parenting. This kid who went out and shot at the Oxford school here recently, his parents were, he was out of control, and his parents were enabling him, and which is why it was one of the reasons why I was thinking it might not be a bad thing if they were also prosecuted for this. Maybe it would wake some parents up to, you need to pay attention to what your children are doing. So I think that there's a bit of that in there more than anything else. I don't think it's necessarily the video games. I think it's a cultural thing. Okay. And it's the stigma of mental health that instead of getting the people the help they need, it becomes stigmatized to, oh, you're a loon. Oh, you've got mental health issues. Let's get them fixed instead of just putting them off and shuffling them down the road, so to speak.
Well, I definitely agree with that. And, I don't think the issue of guns is going to fix the problem in the long run, probably like most people don't. But I do appreciate your input on this. I thank you very much for your show.
Well, I appreciate you listening and calling in, and hopefully we can answer hopefully we can answer more of your questions in the future if you listen, because you're, quite honestly, you're the target for this show. You're the person that I'm trying to speak to, the person who's not necessarily pro-gun, but not necessarily anti-gun. You're looking for answers, and that's what we're trying to provide. We're trying to provide answers. That's why we say there's no such thing as a dumb gun question, because you just don't know until you ask the question. and some people are just embarrassed or afraid to. We're not going to judge. We're going to try and answer the question to the best of our ability, and that's what it's all about. So, like I said, you are the target audience for this show, for this day of the week, because we just want to help you understand things better.
Sure. Well, I definitely am pro-gun.
Well, good, and that's good. That's good. But we're looking for people who want more answers, and whether it's pro-gun, and like I said, I really like to talk to people who are what I like to call gun curious. You know what I mean? They just just want to know a little more. So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for calling in. 433-3150. I mean, yeah, there is no correlation. There is the scientific studies that they've tried to do to link that have always failed because there is no linkage to it. Again, because it's a game. If any linkage came from the fact that some of those people were basically unable to separate fantasy from reality. We understand that. There's just that's just how it works. So we need to look a little bit more at mental health issues and things like that. And there are games that are worse than others, but it is again, it's up to a parent to decide whether or not. I mean, let me face it. I played Grand Theft Auto, which is probably one of the big ones that people are, always talking about, because that's the one where you can basically run rampant and do whatever. You can be a criminal, a thug, and everything else. I've played that. Now, I wouldn't let my children play that because I'm a parent and I can separate fantasy from reality. I never let my kids play that up front. But as they grew older, I did allow them to play other video games that were shooter games, Rainbow Six or something else where they were part of, Call of Duty, where they were part of a military unit or things like that. I mean, but that comes back to the parenting and deciding when the child is old enough to be able to understand that and understand the difference. Plus, I also trained all my kids about guns to begin with before they ever got into the shooter games. So maybe it's about mental health, but maybe it's also about that parenting aspect of it. I mean, that's an important part. All right. Appreciate you coming in. We got more coming up. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this. Okay. Kids' PlayStations and Xboxes are collecting dust like the Nintendos did. I mean, that happens. You get these old... I was laughing because we've got a stack of consoles on one of our shelves that are old consoles that we didn't get rid of because they had some fun games that we'd like to play, so we just put them up on the shelf, and every now and then the kids will break them out and play a specific game or whatever. But yeah, we just don't have a whole lot of we don't have a whole lot of console games anymore. Most of the stuff's on the PC. But again, we know what our kids are playing, so it is what it is. Rodney Barnes, Luana Baker Barnes says hi. Excuse me. Tell Luana I said hi. Tell Luana I said hi. Kids will play GTA until they dry up on the chair. Well, I mean, I've never experienced that myself. I will tell you that they'll play World of Warcraft till they dry up in the chair. You want to talk about a game that you can get into. Oof, man. I'm embarrassed to say how many hours I have playing World of Warcraft with my whole family. That was a game that brought us all together. I mean, I remember at one point we had full groups going in together of just me and my wife and my 5 kids, or 4 kids at the time, I guess, all playing together. Like I said, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you probably how many hours I have on that. But we did it together. It was fun. That's what it is. Good parenting is a must, said Chuck. If you leave the kids hang out to dry, they could fall. That's true. You got to take an interest. You got to pay attention. You got to be part of it. That's what it's all about. All right, Greg, are you still in the chat room, Greg? If Greg's here. I had a Madden football problem, then I became a father. Yeah, exactly. Overcooked causes family rift. Yeah. Greg, if you're still in the chat room, let me know because I'm going to dive into this Frontsite issue in the next segment. And I'd like to get your input on it because, like I said, although I'm a life member. Oh, you're plowing. Okay, good. Well, maybe you can give me a little backing on this when I start talking about it here in a few minutes, and we can walk through this because I've tried to go through Piazza's letter a couple times, and damn, that thing is dense. It's like 15 pages of stuff. So let me do that there. Where's my starred inbox? There we go. Okay. Oh, I need the second one, don't I? All right. Well, let me get everything ready for the next segment here because that's what I can do. Whoops, one more. Here we go. I have got so many emails. Okay, there we go. Let me duplicate that. All right, duplicate. There we go. Now I got them both up in on the same time. Okay. 433-3150, 433-3150. If you would like to sound off and talk with us in the next segment, we've got that coming up. Did you hear about the ATF raiding the Amish farmers? ATF raided an Amish farmer. No charges have been filed, but they did seize a bunch of guns from him. Man, it's it'll be interesting. Okay. You'd easily win a Senate race in the Valley, says Harold. That was if I would be interested in a Senate race in the Valley, which I'm not, unfortunately. It's not something I can do. Any bets on how anti-gun the next Joe Alas Supreme nominee will be? Yeah, I don't know. So Breyer is, or is it Kennedy? It's Breyer. Breyer is going to be retiring at the end of this session, and then there'll be another nominee for Supreme Court. It'll be interesting to see how that falls out as we move forward on that. Okay. I'm just going through any other comments here. Just saying we don't allow Grand Theft Auto. I agree with Kim. GTA normalizes violence. Normalizes random violence. I mean, it does in a way, but again, this is you've got to know your kids. I mean, I'm not going to let my 15 or 16-year-old play that, but my 18-year-old, he could play that if he wanted because he understands the difference now. But, I mean, yeah, if you're just buying your kid a copy of Grand Theft Auto at the age of 12 and plonking them down in front of a television, it probably does normalize a lot of that stuff because they probably haven't easily separated that out yet. Becoming a politician is just another form of panhandling, says Brian. And probably not nearly as lucrative, to be honest with you. Oh, man. All right. So we're going to dive into this, and we're going to talk about the stuff at Frontsite, and we will get a bit of a fit from this. And hopefully get a little bit of help from Greg on this as well as we talk about it. But that's going to be the next big topic. And then we're going to talk. What was it? One more thing I wanted to talk about. Where is oh, there it is right there. Social media. There we go. I found it. All right. You guys ready? Let's do it. Hour 2 of Firearms Friday, the Michael Duke Show. Willie Waffle will be joining us here at the end of the session as well. Let's get into it. Get it done. Don't forget to like and share. Like and follow the show page. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms of Friday. That's right. Your chance to sound off on issues of a Second Amendment nature. Your chance to talk about guns and gun rights and so much more. It's all right here on the Michael Duke Show. We appreciate you coming in and joining us and being part of it. It's the one day a week we focus on gun rights and firearms and the Second Amendment and everything else. And we got a lot of questions and a lot of things to talk about this morning, and we're going to dive into it here. First things first, we got a couple phone calls, and I need to clear those out and figure out what we're doing here before I talk about the main topic that I want to kick off here this morning in hour 2, which is the discussion of what's going on at the Frontsite Firearms Institute down in Nevada. Let's clear out a couple lines here before we jump into that to see what's going on. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Ron in Sterling.
Hello, Ron. What's on your mind, sir?
Has the word assault ever been related to as a physical form?
Sure. The word assault, I mean physical.
I relate it.
Yeah.
I relate it to as an assault and battery. I mean, assault to me is like you've assaulted somebody with words.
Right. No, assault can be used for a variety of things.
Proceeded with battery.
Right. No, I mean, the word assault is not simply restricted to firearms. It's used to, you can assault someone verbally. You can assault them with your hands, fists, and feet, a table leg, a baseball bat, a rock. Assault is useful in all those aspects.
Yeah, and that's the word that's been generalized for that one particular looking weapon that they say looks military.
Right.
And it's, like you said, anything that you use in your hand to defend or use against somebody else.
Right. Guy beats a guy to death with a hammer. Is it an assault hammer now? He uses a table lamp to hit somebody. Is it an assault table lamp now? I mean, it's a made-up definition. That's the problem, because there is no such thing as an assault weapon in the lexicon outside of the media. There is nothing out there. There are battle rifles.
Exactly.
There are battle rifles that the military uses, and they may look similar to the semi-automatic sporting versions, but they are not the same.
Correct. And the basic weapon has been evolved throughout the years to make it better. Thusly, you have the machine gun, because they're just trying to spit out as many bullets as they can, as fast as they can, throwing lead out there.
Right.
And it's just an evolution of what has happened. And they put the assault on that first one, or that one, and they think it's all of them. And that's the scary thing about it, that we shouldn't be allowing them to change.
Well, the
problem of the person behind it is where the problem is.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing to do with that weapon.
Yeah, it's the person, not the tool. But this is a way for the news media to capture, by capturing the language and the vocabulary, it helps them control the narrative and the conversation. That's why you don't hear anything really about gun control now. Now it's common sense gun safety measures, right? Because now it's about gun safety, not about gun control. We're going to take the gun in the effort to make it safer.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, Ron,
anyway,
thank you for your call. I appreciate you calling.
Have a great day.
Appreciate you calling in. Again, Pivotel call-in line is open, 433-3150. Good morning. Who's this?
Hey, Michael. It's Greg.
Well, hello. Good morning, my friend. So let's dive into this. I've asked Greg to come on the program as well. Greg is big in the firearms community on the peninsula. He's the one that hosts all the Friends of NRA dinners down there and everything else, and he's a member of Frontsite, which is an organization out of Nevada, in Pahrump, Nevada. It touts itself as probably the largest firearms training institute in the world, so they boast something like 250,000 members. I'm a lifetime member. I ponied up the whatever it was at the time, $400 or $500 to become a member and do that. And I've been there a couple times, really enjoyed my time there and everything else. But they put out some interesting news here recently in a letter that went out talking about how they are going to now be restructuring a lot of the entirety of the memberships. And so people are a little bent about this. He sent out a 15-page letter last Saturday talking about how they had been conned by a con man that had defrauded the company and is attempting to acquire the shooting range and the academy through some kind of contractual chicanery that was involved in the contract that he had originally signed with Frontsite. And as a part of that, Frontsite is saying, well, we need to continue to battle him and we need money for the court case and everything else. So in light of that, we're going to restructure all these plans and membership levels, many of which were, like I had, lifetime memberships or whatever else. And people have thrown a flag on the play. A lot of the owners or the members have gotten upset about this. And I guess, Jeff, you just sent me, Greg, you just sent me an email that came out last night that talks about how they've got that on hold because there's been such a hue and cry from this. You've been kind of following this a little closer than I have. What are your thoughts on what's going on? And give us a little background here.
Well, it's a lot of it's really confusing. I thought I signed up as a life member. I've been a member since 2014. Done all the upgrades, all the stuff you can possibly do, and I still have all my memberships that I've accumulated over time. But it looks to me like Dr. Piazza was trying to get some funding to finish out the hotels and all the stuff he was trying to do with the ranges, and he got involved with the wrong guy, I guess, and the guy's trying to foreclose on the place. So there's a lot of drama from Saturday till Friday now. That email last night, he's backing up and saying that we're putting everything on hold until we can come up with a plan for the membership, because I think there are several lawsuits were being talked about. So it's pretty interesting. I absolutely love Frontsite. In the first letter, I don't know if you caught that, the one he put out on Saturday, that they're going to close the Nikiski range, and that was the main reason I became a member.
Right.
Because heck, I can drive 100 miles and go shoot.
Right. Well, that was always the challenge.
And
that was always the challenge. Frontsite being in Nevada. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Their training is so top notch, and the instructors. I mean, the number 2 guy for Frontsite comes up here in the summer. So you've got the best. You have literally the 2 best instructors that they had came to Alaska and taught for the last, 5 years, 6 years, quite a stretch of time.
It was one of the reasons why I finally popped for the lifetime membership, is because I had attended Frontsite down in Nevada, and it is a top class facility with top class training. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. But when I discovered that by, purchasing and getting the higher membership that I would have access to the Nikiski site, which ironically, I've never actually attended anything at the Nikiski site, but I always wanted to have the opportunity. That was one of the big bonuses to it. And, this idea that somehow people were going to lie down silently and just kind of take this whole restructuring. I mean, I think somebody got way ahead of themselves. And quite honestly, how somebody like Dr. Piazza and his team got bamboozled by this guy. I mean, it's kind of shocking to see what's going on. It makes you kind of question, quite honestly. Now, anybody can be conned, I guess, but it makes you kind of question, honestly, what was going on in their minds. How did they get bamboozled on this deal?
That's a great question. I wish I had the answer to it. I really think that they had high hopes. They were looking for foreign investors, and somebody promised them that they could pull it off, and obviously didn't perform. So I'm not too sure where this whole decision came from. I mean, I'm just a member, and I've been reading through these emails and rereading them and rereading them. And yesterday's email that I just sent you this morning, I really think if they'll put this thing on hold and let the members have some input, we can pull this all back together.
Right.
I mean, I paid, they're wanting a $50 a month or a $500 a year membership fee. They call it a maintenance fee. So it becomes more like a timeshare. And I'd be more than willing to pay that. But and I've already paid up for 1 year. I figured I'd hang out, see what's going on.
Right.
I'm hoping that we can get the Alaska facility, get them to open it back up, because, I mean, that's the biggest reason I'm a member, is because I can get high-quality training and only have to drive 100 miles.
Right. Exactly.
I'm a concealed carry instructor, and I work with Donna Anthony quite a bit. And, we teach a lot of fun stuff. But to get to all the basics, you need somebody that's just focusing on basics.
Right. Well, it is a little frustrating. I mean, again, I read through that letter a couple times, and like I said, I agree with you. Confusing is probably if I was going to tag a word to that, confusing is definitely it, because I was confused as to the reasoning to begin with. How did you get bamboozled? How is this going to solve the issue? I mean, is this strictly a money issue, or do we have a structural problem inside of Frontsite? I mean, the amount of things that they're closing and killing on this deal. I mean, he's got, 25, 26 different points of things that they're going to change right off the gate. I mean, it's no wonder that the membership is kind of up in arms over what's going on. Because we were sold on this. If you do this, you're in it for life. If you do this, you get access to this. You may have to pay a few extra fees here and there when you actually go do it, but at a greatly reduced rate. And to me, it was a safe and healthy investment to do that. And I think this whole thing just leaves a lot more questions, and I think that's what people are upset about.
Yeah, no, I agree. 100%. Like I said, I've been reading these emails over and over, trying to pick them apart and figure out, decipher what they actually say. The last one there, he actually is, backed up pretty hard and put everything on hold, which is great. But I think that, maintenance fees are liable to be where we're headed. And then they were wanting you to pay $75 a day for every day you were in class, to cover the instructors' wages, and it all makes sense to me. I can see why. I mean, there's these memberships. He revalued them all, and so a founder membership, the diamonds are gone. They've upgraded them to something else. Now there's 4 levels of membership, and I'm in the top tier, so the top tier membership, if you bought that from Frontsite, would cost you $120,000 now.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money to then turn around and have to pay maintenance fees
a lot of money.
and daily fees and everything else on top of it. So, yeah, it really.
The one change that they made that I really thought was great was if you have what they call the Frontsite bucks, you are now able to use that to buy ammo at Frontsite, which is, great. Granted, they're going to raise the price a little bit, but boy, to be able to take some of that residual points money that I had and turn it into Frontsite cash, that's awesome.
Right. Well, it's raised a lot of questions, and like I said, people are a little leery. I always thought that I really love Frontsite. I always thought that Dr. Piazza, when he was putting out his emails and everything, it was always kind of this slick thing. It was kind of like one of those. He always felt a little bit like one of those carnival barkers, in a lot of ways. They always had these grandiose dreams, and I always thought, man, that might come back to bite you in the end. And it looks like that's what happens. Sometimes dreamers dream a little too much, you know what I mean? But we'll see.
Very possible.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Keep me in the loop, Greg, because I'm not getting emails from them anymore. I don't know why, but I will keep me in the loop. If you hear anything new, let us know, and I appreciate you giving us your perspective on this morning.
All right, Michael, you have a great day.
Thanks so much for coming on board this morning. I'll get a little bit more into this. Do I have any more? I've still got another phone call. So I've got one more call on hold, and I want to get to them. So I will read you some of the stuff about what's going on specifically with Frontsite here in a minute. But let's change gears real quick, and we'll go over here. One final call before we go to break. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Michael. It's Fred in Rhode Island. How you been?
Hey, Fred. Good. I'll tell you what, Fred, can you hold for me? Because I am coming up on the break, and I don't want to shortchange you on your thoughts. I love hearing from Fred all the way out in Rhode Island, who listens every Friday on the interwebs. So hold the line, Fred. We'll be right back to you. The Michael Duke Show continues. We got one final gun segment before we dive into it with Willie Waffle, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back taking Fred's call right after this, The Michael Duke Show. It's Friday.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend.
Michael Duke Show.
All right, so we got Fred on hold, and we're going to talk. This thing. I was reading through this letter, and man, it is again 15 pages. This first letter from Piazza talking about this thing, but first of all, I'm just wondering, how does a multi-million-dollar organization get so easily bamboozled that they basically? Let me read you this. What they said here. They basically said that they got conned. You may remember I was forced to file a lawsuit to protect you and Frontsite when we were conned out of more than $500,000 by an attorney who initially posed as a legitimate businessman back in 2012, so 10 years ago, with experience in raising construction funds for established and rapidly growing projects in rural areas. He represented that he was one of us, a pro-gun patriot who wanted to assist Frontsite in positively changing the image of gun ownership in our lifetimes by helping us complete the resort. Piazza has these big dreams about creating not just a range in the desert, but kind of a destination resort where they had hotels and everything else to so that people could stay on site, and it would be kind of like, like I said, a destination. He wanted to complete the resort with low-interest money that he, the attorney, would source from his vast pool of overseas investors. He promised he would raise all the funds needed to complete the resort and do it quickly if we covered all the administrative costs and some initial marketing costs. It turns out he was not one of us. He was a lying con man. It was not the fraudulent misrepresentation he made regarding his experience or network investors or his utter failure to deliver on his multiple promises of full funding of our project or that he did not raise the promised $150 or $75 or $50 or $25 or even $10 million to fund towards the completion of the resort that caused me to sue him. No, his biggest transgression against us, and really his biggest sin against you, being us, the members, is the fact that after we provided everything we agreed to provide and kept the resort project moving forward, in spite of his fraudulent misrepresentation and failures, and having never failed to pay any of our financial obligations under his funding agreement, he deceitfully attempted to steal Frontsite away from us by fraudulently and fictitiously claiming we were in default of some weasel-worded and highly questionable language in our agreements with him. He claims he had the right to sell Frontsite's land and water rights even though we had never failed to pay any of our financial obligations under his funding agreement. He said they've been fighting this lawsuit for 4 years. And they haven't been able to get a default. First of all, I'm just curious. I mean, how in the world would you give this guy, in any kind of language, would you give him the ability and the right to sell? Or, I mean, I don't know. I don't do this for a living, so I can't. I just can't do it. But how in the world did you get suckered into this? You know, that's a problem. That's a problem. So maybe Piazza and company need better lawyers to begin with. That's the first thing. But yeah, they're in this, and that's one of the reasons why they're fighting this whole thing. But I mean, that's just one part. Again, 15 pages. This thing just goes on and on and on and on about all the changes that are going on in there. You can read more about it here. I'm going to post a link in the chat room. Bearing Arms, Tom Knighton over at Bearing's Arms has got a piece up about this with some links where you can go read the stories and the links and see a copy of the letter yourself. So you guys can do all that yourself. But yeah, it's disheartening to say the least, especially for people who, like me, ponied up with some money in the hopes that they'd really be able to use it more one day. And now here we are. All right, well, we're going to jump back into this. And we'll start off with Fred, who's going to be part of this with us here this morning. And we're going to kick things off with him here in just a moment. Don't forget to like and share this video on Facebook. Don't forget to like and follow the show page as well to make sure you get notifications. And if you're on YouTube, or even if you're not on YouTube, go over to YouTube and hit the subscribe and the bell so in case Facebook doesn't work like it has a couple times this last week, you will get notifications there. Let's get back into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, welcome back to the program. Continuing now, gun Q&A, open line, open forum today for gun and gun questions and discussions. I would also like to talk a little bit about some of the social media stuff in regards to the Second Amendment as well. But let's, first things first, Fred has been on the line for a while. Fred is calling from Rhode Island, one of our weekly call-ins from outside of Alaska, and he joins us this morning. Good morning, Fred. What's on your mind?
Hey, go on, Mike. You know, this whole thing with the New York City shooting with the policeman there, the two of them, and the whole magazine thing.
Right.
You know, it's nothing more than just hackorama. You know, this reporter you mentioned earlier, I can't remember his name, nor do I wish to try, because he's probably a real hack anyway, real piece of work. And he's just doing the due diligence of what these leftist fools want to try to push down as the great solution to the big problem, which isn't really a problem at all. If you want to talk about problems, let's talk about the Manhattan attorney with the no bail. You know, the no bail turn loose of the criminals. I mean, you know, you want to talk about creating problems. You want to talk about threatening people's lives. I don't see any firearm creating the amount of damage that this guy is doing under the name of social justice, which is, it's really nauseating.
Which story are you talking about specifically, Fred? Fred, because maybe I missed something. What's the story on that?
Well, he has this thing about, the Manhattan attorney, the liberal attorney. He sits there and there's no bail. You sit there, commit a crime, you commit murder. They bring you in, they arrest you, they bring you before the judge, and they just says no bail, turn them loose, give them a court appearance, but there's no bail to hold them. And that holds true for murder as well as shoplifting and grand theft and you name it.
Right.
They turn the law into a mockery. Is what they've done.
They turn the law on its head.
That's a much bigger threat than anything that they've come up with so far. And this is their idea of a more perfect world. Are you kidding?
Right. No, I mean, that's been part of the problem for years. We saw that here in Alaska with SB 91, where they started to do things like that, where it was a no bail situation or they weren't citing people for minor shoplifting and stuff. And, of course, then things went through the roof. And crime continued to do because, again, it's a mockery of the law. If the law doesn't matter, at what point do people just stop caring? This is what we talk about with the Alaska legislature not following their own laws. When you create a mockery of the law, you've got the danger of creating an Irish democracy, which is essentially we don't care about what your laws say. We're just going to do what we want to do, and you're inviting chaos and anarchy.
Well, you can't replace the common sense with foolishness, and this whole no bail thing is the biggest lot of foolishness that's come down the road in some time on their part. The other thing I want to bring up is this whole, I think it's in San Diego or San Francisco, where they're trying to require insurance for all firearms owners within the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talk about an unconstitutional kick in the head. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets.
Right.
That violates everything from the first to like the 14th, amendment and everything in between.
Right. Well, they've discussed that, actually trying to impose something like that at the national level, that if you own a firearm, that you should have a specialized type of insurance that protects liability from that. And that, of course, would put gun ownership out of the reach of many people, because once it's mandated, I mean, I love this idea of, this reminds me of the debate about whether you should have mandatory car insurance in Alaska. That was a big debate about 25 or 30 years ago. And the argument was, well, if you mandate it, insurance prices will go up because, and the lawmakers are like, oh, no, if everybody has to have it, it'll drive the prices down because then it'll make it easier. The pool's bigger and everything out. And of course, no, as soon as they mandated it, what happened? Your insurance skyrocketed because they knew you had to have it. It was a limited commodity, and they knew you would have to pay whatever it was. We saw the insurance prices rocket right up. The same thing will happen here. And it will put gun ownership out of the reach of a lot of citizens, especially, again, that disproportionately affected, slice of the minority who already are struggling, live in high crime areas or low income areas, trying to protect themselves. They'll be the ones that'll be disproportionately affected by it.
Well, absolutely, it's true. And they really. They have no shame. These liberals just have no shame whatsoever as to the levels of lowness that they'd stoop to sit there and impose something that's just totally out of whack with reality as far as like having any kind of an effect on anything. All they want to do is push their own agenda, which is pretty bad to begin with.
Right.
And they're just trying to throw this in everybody's face. And I think it's time that we just drew the line in the sand and say enough is enough. It's pushback time. And,
that's what's happening.
The solution's going to be in November. Kick these clowns out in the street where they belong. They don't belong in any kind of a public office of any kind. I don't care if it's dog catcher to president. Get rid of them.
Well,
time to go.
I would agree in part. You got to change the players pretty much everywhere, but the problem is also the bureaucracies, Fred, and the things that are already in place. I mean, we've got Republicans that are doing things just as badly as Democrats across the country in various jurisdictions of government imposing their will or their ideology on people who don't want to do it. Why can't we just be left alone? Why can't, if as long as we're not hurting anybody else, why can't we be just left alone? But again, this is the politician's disease, right? They know better than we how to live our lives, how to run the rules, how to spend our money, how to raise our children. It's all, I mean, that is really the root of this problem, is the power that we give to these people, whether elected or bureaucratic. And that's the problem. And I don't know as a single election will solve it. It may go some way to slowing it down, but we can't stop fighting.
Well, I think they send a loud and clear message. The rest of them may wake up and smell the coffee and say, maybe we'll just back down a little bit because they're coming after. Eventually they're going to come after me, and I think they probably get a reality check. If they had some kind of real opposition, they kind of hold them in check and send them out of the game.
Well, that's the problem, Fred. Is part of this is that we are just fighting a holding action. That's all we're doing. We're just retarding the growth of government. We're not chipping away at it. We're not reducing the growth of government or the reduce of government impact in our lives. We're just basically holding back the tide, and we're slowing it down. But we're not doing it. Something eventually is going to have to give. And I think, like I said, you're seeing it in places like New York and Connecticut where they pass these, SAFE Act or the assault weapons ban and things like that, and they get a 3 or 4% compliance rate, where a lot of the lawful law-abiding gun owners have said, not today. Sorry, we're not going to participate. That we refuse to comply. If you start seeing more of that, like I said, then the danger of the Irish democracy is real. It's that's the problem. All right. Well, thank you, Fred, for calling in. I appreciate you holding for so long. We're out of time, though. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show continues. Willie Waffle up next.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, in the break, like I said, just slowly moving their agenda. That's true. I mean, that is true. And that's the bottom line is this. Like I said, we are basically, since the beginning and foundation of this country, we have been fighting a holding action against encroachment by government. And we've been successful in certain areas and not successful in certain areas. But you could see it today in this discussion in the public square about many things, firearms in particular. People who don't have a dog in the fight, who don't have any firearms, they can be persuaded to believe that, then if I don't need firearms, then nobody needs firearms. Well, what about the rural people, the hunters, the people who need to defend themselves against criminals? And, that it doesn't affect me, so I'm okay with it. And then you get bureaucracies that are being built and politicians who want to score points with their constituency on doing something, and they do it. And then bureaucracies that get created and bureaucrats who want to protect their positions and justify what they're doing, so they create new laws and do all that. So we literally have been fighting a holding action against the growth of government since the day the ink was drying on the Constitution. I mean, even Jefferson, basically, was it 12 years after the final ratification of the Constitution? It's like 1824, 1826. Because it took years to ratify the Constitution. He basically wrote to John Adams, I think, if I recall correctly. He basically said, we screwed the pooch. He goes, we thought in writing the Constitution that we had protected government from, taking unto itself and consolidating all this power. And yet here we are 12 years later, we can already see it happening. This is 12 years after the Constitution was ratified. He's saying, we're already doomed at that point because it's already consolidating power unto itself. I mean, the power that the federal government today holds over American citizens in a variety of aspects in their lives would make the founders weep. I mean, they would just be pulling their hair out. But it's been that inch by inch. Everything's a cinch. It's the frog in the pot. It's the, one bite at a time elephant, where they've basically been eating into our freedoms each and every day at every level, state, local, national, a bit at a time. And this is where we are. All we can do is fight that holding action for as long as we can. But the more that they do things like create laws that make no sense, or do things like Fred was talking about, releasing criminals without bail, not respecting the rule of law, the more danger that we have of something of this becoming something ugly and violent. Nobody wants that. I certainly don't want that. But maybe that's what it comes down to. Maybe that's what Jefferson talked about with, watering the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots and tyrants every now and then, that comment. Maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. I guess I will accede to his wisdom on that. But all we can do is continue to try and fight back as best we can. It's all we can do. Yeah, the 9th and 10th Amendment are the best hope. Need to start doing things as states and not federally, and be okay with the fact that others will do it differently. That's exactly it. They keep saying that the Civil War decided that the federal supremacy is supreme, and that's what it was, even though it used to be the states' rights were supreme. But we still have that pesky little 10th Amendment of the Constitution, which we should be exercising and fighting over all the time. Because this idea that somehow some bureaucrat or some politician in Washington 5,000 miles away understands how we in Alaska should live the best is, well, it's just nonsense. And it is literally the ultimate expression of that politician's disease of thinking that somehow we know better than you how to live your life. And it is both the Democrats and the Republicans who are doing it. This is not just a Democratic thing, folks. I mean, the Republicans have used the boot of the federal government to stomp on many things that they didn't personally like or philosophically believe in. Instead of having the live and let live attitude of letting people do what as long as you're not hurting anybody else or infringing on anybody's rights, leave them alone. Is that such a hard concept? Or as my friend Matt Kibbe says, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. Right? Instead, both sides justify using the government to go in and hurt people and take their stuff and say they're doing it for the common good, which is really just tyranny in another form. That's all it is. Under the cover and the justification of, it's government, so it's all okay. The worst thing is that this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The worst part about that is that it's made up of people who are fatally flawed in so many ways. Still the best things going on out there, but still fatally flawed. Fatally flawed. All right, well, phone lines are ringing. We got Willie coming up. Time to jump back into it. The Michael Dukes Show, Common Sense Radio. Oh, hey, you ready? Okay. Yeah, me too. I just sounded so excited there for a minute, didn't I? That was weird. I was so excited. All right, let's do it. Let's jump into it. Maybe it's because there's no movies this week. I mean, there's just nothing happening. Willie Waffle's going to give us the rundown. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Well, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. This is a really weird week. There is no major movie release in theaters. There's not as much new stuff streaming. So, we've got something, but, this is like the week where, if you wanted to spend some time with your family, you could do that.
Right. Exactly. Well, who wants to do that? My wife texted me yesterday in the middle of the afternoon. She says, there's no internet at the house. Things are getting dire. And I'm like, I said, like an hour later, I said, did the cannibalism start? I mean, they just can't, it's just that you can't live without the internet. No movies. You just have to, maybe you have to look at each other and play a board game or something. But
read a book.
I know, read a book. It's like, whoa, how does that work? All right. Well, but let's. There is some entertainment news. I know you have to start with the Oscars because you love the Oscars. So tell me all about who's going to host it, man. Everybody wants to know. I'm sure everybody wants to know.
This is great. So, there's all sorts of names being floated around right now that the Oscars, they're going out and they're reaching out to a ton of people. They're reaching out to so many people that they may well have multiple hosts of the Oscars this year.
Oh, an ensemble cast.
They're talking to The Rock. They're talking to Spider-Man, Tom Holland. They're talking to Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, Martin Short, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler. They're talking to Maya Rudolph. They're even maybe talking to Zendaya.
Okay, and let me see. Let me check my pulse. Wait a second. Nope, still not excited about the Oscars.
But this is the perfect strategy in my mind. Okay, you bring in a whole bunch of multiple hosts. That way, you cover all your woke bases, right? Because you got your whole diversity thing going on, and no one star can take the blame for when the show stinks, because it will stink. But at least you'll have 3 or 4 hosts going, well, it wasn't me, it was the other guy.
Right, right. Definitely not me. Definitely not me. And eventually, maybe one of these days, they'll figure out that nobody cares about their award shows anymore, and they'll quietly ride off into the sunset, or not.
Well, this year I think the big spin will be how the ratings have shot up from last year, because last year there's nowhere they could go but even further down.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, I think that what they'll try to spin it, they got like a 10 last year. If they get a 15 this year, they'll be like, hey, ratings are up. Obviously, it was all about COVID. No, it's not about COVID.
No,
the world changed. Now, the COVID's a big reason why the world changed. I don't want to discount that.
Right.
But the world has changed.
Yeah, I was talking to people. Somebody asked me the other day. I've got a big box in my office at the station that says Sony on it, and somebody came in and said, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, that's the finishing touch on my home theater system, because I haven't been to the movies in 3 years." And he said, "Yeah, you know what? Me either. I haven't been at probably maybe 4 years." He said, "Things are just changing. I mean, that whole thing is just changing." And
well, yeah. And the days when, let's face it, when the Oscars were pulling big numbers, you turned on the television, you had 4 choices, and one of them was the Oscars. Now, you got 100 choices. You can watch this, you can watch that, you can go watch a movie, you can play a video game, you could still read a book. I mean, there's so many things competing for your eyeballs, and the show isn't special because every single one of these people, not only do you see them on the Oscars, they're tweeting at you, they're showing up in commercials, they've got a Netflix show. I mean, everybody's doing everything.
All right, well, we'll see who ends up being the scapegoat for the bad Oscars numbers. So let's move on now. What should we talk about? Music or movies? What do you think?
Well, we've got a couple of movie delays. This is still a big part of our lives, and we found out this week Paramount announced that Mission Impossible 7, which was supposed to come out in September, has been pushed until July of 2023, and they are citing a lot of production issues because people are coming down with COVID, and they're filming in areas where they're not allowed to film right now because of COVID.
Right.
And so, this has made a lot of people go, well, what about Paramount's other big movie, the other Tom Cruise movie that's going to supposedly open on Memorial Day, Maverick?
That one I hope is in the can by now, because that was supposed to come out in 2020, wasn't it, or something?
Oh, yeah. It's in the can, but this is one of those deals. They're playing that game right now. They're trying to figure out how many dollars can I make now, or if I wait 6 months, will I make more dollars later? And we've seen great success. I mean, the Spider-Man movie was amazingly successful.
Right.
Scream did very well over the past few weeks. I think they're asking themselves, is Maverick going to be the next Spider-Man, or is it going to be a movie that a lot of people look and go, oh, it's that old creepy Tom Cruise, I don't want to go see that movie?
Well,
hey, that's how a lot of younger people look at Tom Cruise now, though.
Yeah.
He's not the matinee idol he was in the 80s and 90s. Now he's that weird guy that was jumping up and down on couches and works with Scientology.
Well, I guess we'll see how that works out. I got to tell you, you'll have to be a youngster to watch the new Batman movie, or you'll have to take bring a Monster energy drink or something. That thing is going to be long.
This is going to be really long. So, you've got Robert Pattinson as the Batman coming out in March. This is the one that I think, frankly, is going to be the next really big movie. It's going to be the Batman. And, the movie theaters are now finding out the length of the movie so they can start planning. And they're hearing that the runtime is clocking in at 2 hours and 55 minutes.
I still watch it. I still watch it. Let's think. What other movies? The Lord of the Rings, not the extended edition, but even the regular editions were like 248 or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, there is an appetite for some for longer movies. I love the old meme I saw on Facebook the other day, that we like to show you this movie as 3.5 hours. And you're like, no way, I couldn't do that. Well, how about we break it up into 8 1-hour segments and put it on Netflix? Oh, yeah, I'll watch that all day. I'll watch that all in one sitting. Wait. Yeah.
All I know is that this thing is going to be 2 hours and 55 minutes. I have to stop drinking liquids now.
Right, exactly.
So I can get through it.
Well, again, another reason I just push pause and walk out of the room and then come back. All right, but we'll watch it. It looks interesting. It looks interesting. I couldn't envision Robert Pattinson as Batman, but then I saw some of the trailers and I thought, well, it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
He might pull it off.
Yeah.
Pattinson, we like to make fun of him for being a sparkly vampire, but we all have to have our start. And he's actually done some pretty good acting since then. He's done some pretty good movies since then. I'm willing to give him a chance.
I got to say, Christian Bale still the best. Well, no, actually, you know what? Michael Keaton, really not bad for what he was working with. I'll tell you that for nothing. Michael Keaton was not bad.
You can't forget Michael Keaton's Batman changed superhero movies.
Absolutely.
As we know them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right. Let's see. We don't really have any big movies. We have some streams, but we still have some. I had to laugh because I watched this. Adele, the singer Adele. She was going to do this big Vegas show. And then like 3 days ago, she got onto, Instagram or Twitter or something. Somebody sent me the video, and she starts bawling on this thing. Oh, I can't do it because of COVID and all this stuff. But then it turns out that maybe she was like, hanky-panky on the set, and who knows what's going on and everything else. But these are shows that were like sold out and stuff. And then she's like killing cancer. People are hacked off about it.
Oh yeah. Like literally the day before this is all supposed to start, this big residency out in Vegas, she has this like video meltdown about, she just can't put on the show. A lot of folks have COVID and the sets aren't quite right. And now, as time has gone by, we're starting to hear more and more that, what really was going on is that there was a lot of disputes between her and some of the creative crew that, that they weren't very happy, or she wasn't very happy with the staging of the show and for lack of a better term, the special effects. I started reading this is where I knew we were in trouble. It's like there was supposed to be something like a 10,000 gallon water tank on stage, and there's something where she's a mermaid or something. I'm like, oh yeah, no wonder you're canceling the show. That just sounds like it's gonna be a disaster from the start.
Yeah, but that's okay. Keith Urban to the rescue, right?
Oh yeah, see, because all Keith Urban needs is a guitar and a band, baby. He's taken some of her dates. He's already going to be doing a big thing Memorial Day weekend there in Vegas, and so he's taking some extra dates. So he's going to be taking some of her dates in March and April, and he's going to be entertaining the people because that's the kind of guy Keith Urban is.
Well, sure, because he also makes $1 gazillion when you do that residency thing in Vegas. You make money, honey. That's what happens.
Well, it's a good deal. It's a good deal. I'm willing to do a residency right now in poor little upstate New York.
Oh man,
people can come on by. We'll just talk about movies the whole time.
Exactly. The wokeness, dude. The wokeness.
I know.
Okay, Wheel of Time, wokeness just destroyed that show. I'm not even going to get into it because I know you hate to hear me rant. But, we've seen show after show after show fall under this banner of wokeness. And now the House of Mouse is, are they not woke enough? What's going on here?
Well, this just goes to prove, when you start striving into the wokeness pool, it's very hard to satisfy everybody. And so this week they announced that they're doing a live action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they are going to be having a Latina actress and West Side Story star Rachel Zegler taking the role of Snow White. And there were applause everywhere that there was going to be a Latina actress playing Snow White. And then there was another voice from the crowd. One Mr. Peter Dinklage, who's saying, "What about the dwarves?
What about the dwarves?
What about the dwarves?
So are they?
What are you going to do?" I think his quote was, "This is a backwards story about 7 dwarves living in a cave together. What are you going to do about that?"
Right. What are you going to do? And of course, he's no chef. For those of you who don't know who Peter Dinklage is, he's Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones, and he played the small little South Pole elf on, not the elf, but the writer on the movie Elf. He's a huge star. And he's a dwarf. And so is he saying, what? Are you going to shrink people in post, or are you going to put real dwarves in there?
Well, he's really saying is, how are you going to portray them better than you have traditionally? Like, I don't know. I didn't realize that Doc and Goofy and Sneezy were very offensive stereotypes. But it turns out, I guess they are somehow. And so, now Disney is pledging to work with the dwarfism community to make sure that the portrayal of these characters is exactly the way it should be, to honor them. But I don't think Peter Dinklage is going to be playing Doc anytime soon. It sounds like that's out the window.
I think that's done. All right. Well, you do have one thing real quick. I don't have Apple TV Plus, and I don't know anybody who does, but apparently they've got a big thing on a comedy murder mystery after party.
Yeah, and isn't that wild? Apple TV Plus, when it first premiered, there was talk about how they were going to maybe take down Netflix, and they lined up. Have you seen their commercial that they play these days with John Hamm, where he lists all the stars that are working with Apple and have movies and they have series with them, and he bemoans the fact that they haven't hired him, and then you're right. Not as many people are watching Apple TV Plus, and that's where this after party, I think, is going to be kind of an interesting player here. So this is a series. It's like I want to say like 8 episodes long. It's about a high school reunion, and one of the people who went to the high school is a famous rock star played by Dave Franco, and he decides to take some people back to his mansion for an after party, but that's where he's murdered.
So it's an after-party murder. Okay.
It's an after-party murder. And now Tiffany Haddish plays the detective who's called into the case to interview the people at the party to try to find the killer. And in each episode, we see a different witness telling their story, their version of what they think is the truth. And that's where some of the comedy comes in. The way they portray themselves, the way they're the great hero and everybody else was crazy. It's a movie that it's a series that tries to be like goofy, but it's not as funny as you might think. I think it's kind of walking this fine line where I'm kind of interested in the mystery, but I thought it was going to be funnier, and now I'm not so sure I like it as much. I mean, it really is kind of average, kind of in the middle, and I'm hoping it'll get better. But I think that we were promised a great deal more comedy than you're really, really getting in this series so far.
So kind of more like a dark humor comedy more than it's not really.
Yeah, but it's not dark enough. Like I really do think it really does kind of hinge on people being goofy, people being odd, rather than being dark, rather than being sinister, rather than really kind of hitting any nerves. It's just more like the tough dude with the muscle car, that stereotype.
Right, stereotyping. All right, -1 to 4 waffles. Where are you at?
I'm gonna say like 2 waffles. It's almost there. Almost.
All right.
There.
Well, I'm not getting Apple TV for it, so that's okay. Let me give you just throw it out there. It's on BBC. You can get it through Amazon Prime. It's through Acorn TV. I think it's the BBC. It is Hercule Poirot featuring David Suchet. It's 70 episodes. It is just feel-good TV. You should watch that if you get a chance. Willie, thank you, my friends. Good to talk with you. We'll see you next week. Folks, we are out of time. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Yeah, that's right. I abruptly cut Willie off because I realized I was running over.
That was my fault.
Yeah, no,
I should have stayed out.
That's fine. No, but I did want to say this because my wife kind of turned me onto it. I bought her Acorn TV last year because she likes a lot of the British, and I do too. I enjoy some of the British shows. But she stumbled across the fact that they have Sir David Suchet which is a role that really defined him for like 20 years. Him playing Hercule Poirot, the Agatha Christie detective, the little Belgian detective. And I say 70 episodes, but these are like an hour and 20 to an hour and 45 minutes long. These are movies, mini movies, each one a book written by Agatha Christie. And they're really good. They're really fun. They're family friendly. They're entertaining. They're interesting. They're comforting. It's like comfort food on television. So if you enjoy a good murder mystery, just check out Poirot on. You got to get it on Acorn TV on Amazon Prime. But it's worth it. So
well, and a hot topic. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have the Disney version of Hercule Poirot when Kenneth Branagh returns in Death of the Nile. I was not a big fan of the first one.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about the second one. I think the second one, one of the biggest challenges they're facing is that one of the biggest stars, is now scandal plagued. And they're going to have some troubles there, so we'll have to see what goes on.
Well, we'll see. I got to be honest. Once you see David Suchet, he was actually asked to play Poirot by Agatha Christie's daughter.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he read every book. He got it. He made scads of notes. He became the character and lived the character for 20 years. Hard to see anybody else in there, but hey, I like me some Kenneth Branagh. That's fine. All right, my friend. Thanks for coming on board. We will see you next week.
All right, talk to you next week.
Folks, Monday, it's another day. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.